My name is Lily. I'm standing outside the Denver General Medical Center, the gift bag in my hand slipping to the ground. My world has just shattered into a million pieces. There, emerging from the side door, is my husband, Ethan, holding a newborn wrapped in a soft pink blanket. And beside him is my sister, Ava, looking exhausted but with a glow that can't be ignored. They look like a family that I was never part of. It all started with a phone call. I was jolted awake by the muted vibration of my phone on the nightstand. It was my mom, her voice bright and breathless with joy. "Lily's sweetheart, Ava had the baby, a boy, perfectly healthy." Sleep evaporated instantly. I pushed myself upright, my heart filled with a warm, stunned rush. I was going to be an aunt. I quickly got dressed and stopped at a small children's store to pick up some gifts for the baby. As I walked towards the bus stop, the early sunlight slid between downtown buildings, and my breath puffed in the cold morning air. I thought about Ava, my impulsive, free, spirited little sister. We used to be inseparable, but life had pulled us in different directions. I hoped this new baby would bring us closer again. When I arrived at the hospital, I found out that visiting hours hadn't started yet. I sat on an empty bench, lost in old memories. Ava and I had shared everything growing up in our grandmother's Capitol Hill apartment. I was the cautious one, the rule follower, while Ava was wild and unpredictable. She would bring home stray cats and fall in and out of friendships like seasons changing. As I sat there, I noticed a middle-aged homeless woman sitting on a folded blanket. She was different from the others, not calling out for help. On impulse, I dropped some spare change into her cup. But before I could step away, she stopped me. "Wait," she said quietly. She told me that she had seen a man who looked a lot like me, and he had been coming to the hospital more than once this week, and he wasn't alone. I was skeptical at first, but there was something in her voice, a desperation that made me pause. She pointed to a narrow service door and asked me to just watch for a minute. I stood there, my fingers tightening around the handles of the gift bag. I wasn't sure why I was still there, but I waited. And then the door opened. Out stepped Ethan, my husband, with a newborn in his arms. And behind him was Ava. The sight was like a punch in the gut. I couldn't breathe. I watched as they walked towards the parking lot, talking softly, smiling, as if they had all the secrets in the world. I felt a hot flash of dizziness, and my knees threatened to buckle. I grabbed the cold metal railing to keep myself upright. I fled the hospital, my mind a blank. I boarded the first bus that opened its doors, not even registering its route number. When I got home, I collapsed on the hardwood floor, tears spilling silently. I couldn't believe what I had seen. But then, I found Ethan's tablet on the desk. It was open with no password. I tapped on the messaging app, and my world crumbled even further. There were weeks of affectionate, intimate conversations between Ethan and Ava. They had planned to take my grandmother's apartment, the only piece of family history I had left. I knew I needed legal help. I searched for Denver family law attorneys and found Victor Hale. He was calm, strategic, and straightforward. I called him and told him everything. He assured me that the apartment was mine, solely mine under Colorado law. He also recommended that I file for divorce immediately. After the call, I didn't waste any time. I changed all the locks on my apartment and hired a private security service. I packed all of Ethan's belongings and lined them up near the front door. That evening, Ethan came home. He was furious when he couldn't get in. I told him that I knew everything and our marriage was over. He tried to come in, but the security guard stopped him. I shut the door firmly, and for the first time all day, I felt a sense of control. The night after the confrontation, Ava sent me 15 messages, begging me for a place to stay. I blocked her number. Then my mom called, scolding me for being heartless. I didn't say a word and ended the call. The next 2 weeks were a blur of numbness and determination. I met with Victor twice, preparing for the court hearing. Finally, the day of the hearing arrived. In the courtroom, Ethan's attorney argued that he had contributed to the apartment and should get compensation. But Victor presented evidence that all the renovation expenses were paid by me. The judge ruled in my favor. Divorce was granted, and Ethan had no claim to the apartment. Outside the courtroom, Ava was waiting with the baby. When she saw Ethan come out empty-handed, she broke down. And for the first time in a long time, I felt nothing but distance. 30 days passed, and the sharp edges of betrayal no longer cut as deeply. I started to rearrange my apartment, repaint the walls, and let in more sunlight. I found a new therapist and returned to my morning walks. One Saturday morning, I stopped by a cafe near the hospital. There, I saw the homeless woman again. I approached her and thanked her for warning me. She told me her story, how her husband had run off with her sister, leaving her with nothing. I gave her a folded bill, and she finally accepted it. When I returned to my apartment that afternoon, it felt different. It was quiet, peaceful. I curled into bed without the usual tension. I slept deeply for the first time in years. The next morning, I woke up with a calm clarity. I reflected on everything that had happened. It had been a harsh, unexpected journey, but I had survived. I didn't feel triumphant, but I felt grounded, steady, and free. My world had broken open, but within that truth, I had found a path back to myself.